What's up, everybody? This is Noah Washington coming to you from the Fanbase office. I am sitting here with the one and only Dayo. Good sir, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. How you doing?
So I perfectly didn't say your last name.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll tell you why. I was in a conversation last night with my mother over your new show, Iwaju, and she debated me. She literally sat here. We showed a video of your clip pronouncing your last name, and she says, no, it's Okeniyi.
Yeah.
And so she was debating me down, and I'm looking at her, it's like, he says it right here. Like, how are you debating me right now?
Right.
And being a proud parent, and a proud Nigerian, she just would not let up.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, Mom, just watch tomorrow, watch the interview, see how he pronounces it, and then tell me I'm wrong again.
Right.
So, and now here we are, and I now will call my mother afterwards and say, I told you so.
Right.
So, let's get into it. Tell us a little bit about the show for viewers who are just hearing about it for the first time.
Well, I'm going to start with my name, which is Oladayo Ayantola Drop Akamuedu Okeniyi. So your mother is right. It's not Okeniyi, which I like to blame our colonizers for that one. But, it's just one of the things that has happened over the years.
Yeah.
Doing press everywhere, and people just start running with, a pronunciation of your name, And then you just kind of go, at this point, I'll just be a little bit of a douchebag if I keep telling people, no, it's Okeniyi. No, Okeniyi, So, but it happens, people are saying Timothy Chalamet is Timothée, but if he says, my name is actually Timothée, people will be like, bro, relax. All right, it's Timothy, right? But your mother is right.
So my name is Fela Alamete.
Yeah.
And my mother told me, do not let anybody call you Fela. And so that's been...
What's up, fella?
So she's been saying that for the rest of my life. So let's blend colonization.
Right, let's do that.
That's the moral of the story.
Yeah.
But let's get into it, man. I am super excited to talk about this show. Talk to us a little bit about, for people who haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Or just learning about it for the first time.
From Disney Animation and the groundbreaking storytellers of Kugali.
Happy birthday, Tola. This is our team. You want stars for a pet?
It's great.
Comes a Disney Plus limited series.
What would you say if I asked you to go to the mainland?
Set in a futuristic Nigeria.
You want to see the real Lagos?
Yes, let's go.
Welcome to Lagos, Nigeria.
Tola, your daddy has done well for himself.
This is how to fish in large rivers.
Otin, where's my daughter?
She's your responsibility.
Find her.
Be careful, oh. Some of these people are actually dangerous.
I laugh in the face of danger.
I didn't hear you laugh, oh.
Tola, I got you now.
Go! Actually, kind of cute. I take that back.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm beyond excited to talk about this show. Iwaju is literally the first of its kind. Disney has never partnered with another animation studio ever to create something before. So this is the first. And the fact that he chose to do it with an amazing Pan-African entertainment company, Kugali, to produce this show is incredible. And to be a part of it is just like dreams come true. I grew up on Disney like many other people in the world. And for it to be set in Nigeria, in a futuristic version of Lagos, Nigeria, populated by people who sounded like the people around me growing up, it's amazing. Yeah. And so Iwaju follows this really young, precocious girl, Tola, and her best friend, Kole, who happens to be a houseboy who works for them. And they go on incredible journeys around Lagos, Nigeria. They discover not just the beautiful tapestry of the country and the city that I grew up in, but also the city underground, the city underbelly, and they get into some mischief.
I absolutely love, and I loved talking about the show with my family.
Yeah.
I mean, as they're deep rooted in Nigeria, my grandfather was Kole. His name was Kole, and it was really cool and a surreal moment.
Kole for short. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Baba Kole. And so,
okay.
Yep. And so it was cool seeing that and like, yo, somebody somewhere was like, this needs to happen, that this show needs to happen, and that true representation looks like this, right? And it's really, I think it's really poetic that it came out during Black History Month, not because of it being Black History Month, because the depictions we often see are black and white, civil rights movement. We often don't see the other sides and other narratives that are out there in the world. So this was a really special thing. And it, as you said, it's really Nigeria. When the moment Tola said Pepe, I lost it. I was like, what? And when Kole sucked his teeth at the bus driver, I was like, what? This is so dope, and on so many levels. I was telling my friends and coworkers, if Black Panther was Star Wars, then this is Blade Runner. It's nuanced, it's authentic, right? It has depth to it in a way that are being told through animations, much less not even a whole lot of stories in general. What was it like contributing to that?
So I'm going to answer that question on two folds. The first part is, I just want to talk about entertainment in general and how I think there are people now in positions of power that are, allowing us to tell our own stories and not having people come in and tell our stories for us. And what happens there is there's no longer a dilution of the nuances within the diaspora. What I mean by that is, when I got this project, I thought, they'd want us to give an African version of an accent that will be easier to the Western ear. And that wasn't the case. I mean, Matthew Broderick played Simba. You know what I mean? So it's like they had no desire to have like an African voice to do that. Obviously, when they did the live action, or rather the realistic CGI version of The Lion King, they got black voices in there. But with this, they wanted to take it a step further. So it's funny you said about the kissing of the teeth and Pepe and things like that. That was something that was at the forefront of our creators. I just have to really, talk about Ziki Adeola and, Tola Olofoyeku and Hamid Ibrahim. They were like, Dayo, come in and wherever you feel those like instinctual ad libs, throw them in there. So, things like, kissing of the teeth, or things like, Orimio, just these random bursts of Yoruba that just come out, things like that. Nigerians are very animated people, and no one sounds like us. So when the show comes on, in 5 seconds, it's Lagos, Nigeria. It's not South Africa. It's not Kenya. It's not, Northern Africa. It's not Egypt. It is Lagos, Nigeria. You can't mistake it for anything in the world. And that's what they were going for, right? That was the gold standard, and it's not to take away from what has come before. I think everything is stepping stones. You look at Black Panther, which you mentioned, a lot of the actors there pulled different sources for their accent. So when you watch Black Panther, there's no collective Wakanda accent, which I think is a beautiful creative choice. Daniel Kaluuya sounds West African, Ravi sounds East African. T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman, rest the dead, he sounds more, South African. You've got, the guy who plays M'Baku, he sounds like he's from Nigeria. And I think that's great because Wakanda feels like it belongs to all of us and not just one of us. But here we wanted to be specific. This is a specific Nigerian story, a Lagos story, and so I really, really love that. And if you just look at the landscape of entertainment in general, I think there's a thing happening where Hollywood finally is telling stories and not trying to broaden it, not going for the common denominators. Like you look at something like Squid Game, or you look at Parasite that came out of won Best Picture at the Oscars a couple of years ago. These are very specific stories. They didn't even try to speak English. They spoke their native language. You're going to have to read those subtitles, and they didn't try to change the narrative or the hero's journey to fit a Western ideal. And people love it. People are looking for something new, So I think what has naturally happened in India with, RRR, for example, at the Oscars last year, or Parasite the year before, or Squid Game, Africa is next, Nigeria is, I would say, is next, And so they were like, let's tell a story. Don't dilute it. Tell it like you would tell it to a Nigerian audience. And I think out of specific comes the universe.
Let me ask, I want to go in on something you just said.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you that this was made specifically for Nigerians and Nigerian Americans and Nigerians all over the world. But what do you think the contribution that this show will have as a whole to Africans and Black peoples around the world? What's your take?
there's specificity in Africa. You know, I even hate when people say, "Oh, I've never been to Africa." It's like, you know, like Africa is so massive and it's so the variety of people there. And I think what this starts to do is it opens people's eyes to how different we all are. You know, even within the story itself, you have Yoruba Nigerians, you have Igbo Nigerians, Hausa Nigerians. You know, it's sadly, if you go from the scramble of Africa, which is how modern day Africa is, these are borders that were drawn by our colonizers. You know, Nigeria is not even a Nigerian word. It's a brand name. Lord Lugard and his wife, who were the first generals of, you know, Nigeria, they said, Niger area and the East Indian Trading Company isn't sexy enough. And his wife was like, what about Niger area? And so after years of Niger area, it becomes Nigeria. So what I'm trying to tell you is just like, you know, we're trying to zoom back from that whole thing and go, okay, it's not just Nigeria, it's not just Africa. Who are the people, the Yoruba folks, the Hausa folks? So I think it just starts to it just helps people to get more specific. You can look at that country or that continent, I think it's so big and so wild and untamed, but it's like, no, there are incredible pockets. We show Nigeria like it's never been seen before. The affluence in Nigeria. This is an oil company. I mean, an oil nation, you know, so it's a very wealthy nation, but we do show the social imbalances of that, right? The island life versus the mainland life, which is a big part of the story. So for me, it's just like showing people really what Africa, Nigeria, Yoruba folks, Igbo folks, if you just keep going down that hierarchy, what we really are like, truthfully. And we're just people. And ultimately, no matter how specific you get, people are just, we're all living the same experiences and going through life, you know, and yeah, it's just giving people something that they really have never seen before, that we've always known about, but we've never seen.
Let me ask a question. Where I know you were talking about how the creators asked for specific emotes and, you know, natural nuances throughout the recording process, but did Disney come through say, nope, you can't do that?
Absolutely not. I have to give a shout out to Christina Chen. She's our producer from Disney. And she was like, push it as far as it could go. I mean, I literally say Wahala Today in the first, that's my first line. Wahala Today just translates to like I'm in deep shit. Excuse me, I don't know if I can swear on this, but like I'm in deep trouble.
Swear all you
you know what I'm saying? It's like, like, you know, Wahala Today, like problem has come. So it's like, I guarantee you, no one has ever uttered that line in any animated thing ever, let alone a Disney animated production. So the moment Nigerians sit down to watch this and they hear Wahala Today for the first time, they're gonna lose their minds. So that's very specific colloquialisms. So the show is peppered with just colloquialism after colloquialism. You know, that's the stuff that they were like, whenever anything like that organically happened in the booth recording, they're like, we're keeping that. We're keeping that, you know. I'm sure Disney went back and did their homework to make sure we're not sneaking some random crazy stuff in there, but yeah, stuff like that was incredibly encouraged. There was no censorship on things like that. We would just go, you know, I just really have to applaud Disney for their creative process. They really give actors way too much freedom in that booth, you know, and I think that's, you know, Rest the Dead again, Robin Williams, you know, these great VO guys who came before us, and like, you just watch his tapes of doing, you know, the genie in Aladdin back then, and they gave us, who have nowhere near the credits of that man, the same respect, the same amount of leeway in the booth to do whatever we wanted to do. And then they left our producers and our directors to be able to whittle that down and condense it into something that, one, told the story, and two, adequately communicated what Nigerians are really like.
I just love watching the show. I just felt someone's pride in telling the stories of the show to my family. I could tell that they were excited to see it. Outside of, well, no, I can't say it. I don't know Disney. But I just think it's such a beautiful thing that this came together like it did, man. And it's so amazing. Let me ask, was it during the process and production, did you add any of your own notes to the story, or did it all stay in the booth?
It was all on the page, man. I promise you, it was all on the page. Everything. Like Disney, you know, their writing process is different. They really rework that storytelling process.
Yeah.
By the time you've gotten to the booth, they have already explored every iteration possible. So no note you give is a note that they haven't explored before. It's not like conventional filmmaking where somebody writes a script and you send the script around and everybody reads it and then notes. No, Disney, they don't write a script. They do storyboards. So when they pitch you the story, right, the producers and the creators of the show act out all the characters, and they act out the whole thing for you with storyboards. And they are passionate, bro. It's basically saying, we're going to make a movie, but we're going to show you the movie before we make the movie. And they act out everything to do all the voices. And you get to the end and they're like, so what do you think? And you go, yeah, let's just do that. Let's just record it exactly how you said it, you know? So, they've refined the storytelling process. And this is the same process Walt Disney used, hundreds of years ago at this point now with the Great Eight, the guys who animated Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and, that's the technique that Disney has always used, and it's worked out pretty well for them so far. So I just go there and I go, that's perfect. I'm just going to do it like that, because when you read it, it's so authentic. It's even the food. The food was one that killed me when I watched it.
Oh, when I saw pepper soup,
I did get fried suya. It's called in.
Like, what? I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah, man. To me, it's like when you watch something like, Lady and the Tramp, for example, and they have the meatball scene where they're eating spaghetti. I feel like I wonder what Italians think when they watch something like that. Or you watch Ratatouille, they're making all this French food. I wonder what French people think when they watch that, or Moana, with Hawaiian folks. So for me, it's like you just never think you'd be in that number. You never think you'd be in that club of people who have been your culture has been crystallized in an animated form. So people are gonna love that because it's very authentic, very, very authentic to Nigeria.
Tell us, actually, no, before I go, let me ask, you were describing the pitching process. Is this a role like once you heard it, you chase down, or is it completely yours? Walk us through the process.
Yeah, so I had gone up for a role. I don't know if Disney wants me to talk about this, but I had gone up for another project Disney was doing, a really big project, and for scheduling reasons that couldn't work out. So I was like, oh man, heartbroken, but it is what it is. I'll probably be first in line to watch it when it comes out. Yeah. So I left, and then about 2-3 months later, they came back and they were like, do you want to do this thing? I was like, oh, the other thing? And they're like, no, we have a new project. And I was kind of sad for a second. I was like, man, I really wanted the other thing. And Disney's one of those rare companies where they're like, we'll tell you what it is when you tell us you're going to do it. Kind of a thing, So my team was like, Dayo, it's Disney. Like, we're going to do it. And then they were like, yeah, so Disney's doing a story set in Nigeria. I said, yes. Like, they didn't even finish saying Nigeria, bro. There's like the set in Lagos, Nigeria. Yeah. Let's do that. And so I didn't have to chase it. This came to us, and I know what I did in pursuing the other Disney project was really great, but when I read this and saw, oh wow, like this is a very involved character. He goes throughout the whole thing. There's an arc there. I still can't believe that they came and chose me to do it. I really can't, honestly. So yeah, just one of those ones where God just brought it into my own lap. I didn't have to pursue it, didn't have to chase it. It came to me, and
let's talk a little bit more. Go into a little bit more about your character and the evolution throughout the story.
Right. Well, trying not to.
Without spoilers. But,
so I played Tunde, and Tunde is the father of Tola, and he is a self-made tech billionaire, basically. And he is a man who is raising his daughter under a specific situation where he feels he has to be very overprotective of his daughter. And so within his tech company, he's trying to create a new piece of technology that would open a new sector of products that will help protect kids in Nigeria against kidnapping. So he's creating this lizard. It's called Otin, and he's this technological marvel that would be almost like a sidekick, or a ward to his daughter that she can carry on as a pet. And if danger arises, it would go into protect mode and protect his daughter. And so he desperately is on a timeline to make this piece of technology work. And therein lies our story, because something happens to his daughter, and we hope that Otin, the cutest lizard on earth, can protect his daughter.
And it's showcased in the very opening scene. You see him go into action. One of the things I loved in that first episode, I'm trying to walk around it, is when our villain is looking around and he has a scanner. He has a scanner on his eyes, and he's seeing the value of everybody there. And it's such a small thing that I think casual viewers want to see. but these are black and brown people who are worth trillions and millions of dollars, and it's a focal point of the story, which is, as you said, the kidnapping of these kids and the parents giving up ridiculous amounts of money to get them back. And it's so beautiful because these are black people who high value has been placed upon them.
Correct.
When you read that, or even when you saw that, what was your first thought?
Complex. It seems very funny because, you know, on the surface there's a lot of comedy, there's a lot of one-liners in the show, but subtextually there's a lot going on with, you know, the wealth disparagement. Oh, English is rough. There's a wealth gap there that I think, you know, just like every other, you know, leading nation in the world, Nigeria suffers as well. But in that scene, the interesting thing is he's looking at people worth millions and he's still like, no, that's not a good target. That's not a good target. So he looks at my character and obviously he can't see the wealth. He's done something to block his image from this technology, which shows he's, you know, a very high net worth individual. But that's a very real thing. In Nigeria, you'll have the richest of the rich, right? The Dangotes of the world, the Adenugas of the world, you know, literally on the Forbes billionaires list, right next to, you know, farmers and right next to tailors and right next to, you know, house helps. And they live in this very, very close world. I mean, the closest thing that I could use to compare it to would be like Downton Abbey, where you have the wealthy of the wealth and, you know, the people on the underbellies of society living in such close proximity together and have found some kind of symbiotic relationship that is part of just the fabric of our country. And a lot of times it goes unspoken, but this show deals with it very specifically, you know, the islanders, the mainlanders, and it's just truthful. That's just the truth of it, you know what I mean? And kids on the island, you know, almost fantasize in a weird way or have, they have mythicized the island. I grew up in the island, you know, so I'm an island guy. And we're not that crazy. We're not that bad. We're not that whatever. But I think there's a lot of, we also dispel a lot of myths about the island, you know, and that the island is full of amazing people. That's the real heart of Lagos, Nigeria, you know. But we don't segregate. We don't, you know, we mix with the islanders as well. But I think the show does a really great job of navigating very complex social issues in very bite-sized way. So yeah, you have this amazing adventure on the top, but within the story, you do these little deviations where you get to see a real picture of what those social structures are like in Nigeria. It's dope, man. I mean, really, really dope. I think they could write like college courses.
Oh, it definitely will.
In Nigeria with this. Really, I'm not even, you know, speaking of hyperbole.
I'd love it. I really want to get into what you just said. For me, at least for me, right? Yeah. Growing up, I really loved the sense of poshness that was only really popularly shown in Eurocentric media, right? And so coming back, I was looking at it as like, wow, this really, and I've said it, you know, earlier, this is a really pride point, right? We have proud people who are dressed in their cultural garb. And it's you keep speaking to it, it's authentically Nigerian, and it's such a pride of it. It's not a third world country, like it's an absolute wonderland that is being shown. My question is for the people, what has been your reaction to those who have seen it so far?
You know, look, Disney, I had to show this one to my mama. So y'all just gonna have to live with it. But my mother, it comes out February 28th. I'm sure, I don't know when this interview is gonna drop, but Disney, you showed this to your mother? Yes, I did. What you expect? The thing she loved randomly was the clothing. It's funny you mentioned fashion. You know, we had an amazing consultant at Bing Baishi's, and Bing Baishi's an incredible fashion designer in Nigeria. So she came in to do all the uniforms, all the wardrobe for all the characters, which are very authentic. And you have people wearing Western clothes, which is a normal thing, jeans, t-shirts, next to very traditional folks. Like my character is always in that, you know, Iro Abuba, you know, in Kaftan, you know, our villain is always in that, and Adbada. But there's a scene where he's working out and he's in sneakers and like
Under Armour and
exactly,
and his beads on most of the other time, like
exactly, and and I think that's very accurate. You know, also the thing is, you know, the show is populated by a lot of Yoruba folks, you know, in terms of tribe. But if you really look around, you know, you'll see the Hausa representation in there, the Igbo representation. You know, you have a villain who speaks Yoruba but wears Igbo beads, you know, which just shows that cross-cultural contamination, but in a good way, and it's just very accurate, and I love that. I think people will look at that and see the fashion and they might think, oh, but it's also a futuristic take on the fashion.
Yeah.
It's an agbada, but what an agbada would look like in 300 years, so I think they did a really, really good job, but it's not distracting. People who watch it would be able to see it and go, oh yeah, I can see how a future version of that would look, but it still feels everyday. It still feels real and tangible. You know what I mean? I think that's that Blade Runner thing that you're talking about, where they're able to, when you watch it very quickly, you forget it's in the future in a weird way, because it just feels so everyday and so natural, naturally ingrained into everything. But yeah, the technology, the fashion for sure, I think they killed it. The food consultants for sure. The food looks very accurate as well. So yeah, man. But my mother saw the fashion. That was her thing. She was like, "Ooh, that was good." Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go back and ask my mother. Before we get out of here, talk to me. What is something you want audiences to know or your fans to know about this, or anything about you in general? What's coming up for you?
Well, I'll start with this project first. Iwaju really is the brainchild of Ziki. He's our producer, and Ziki basically came up with the story based off of personal experience. He knows a friend who has gone through something very similar to what Tola goes through. I'm not going to give what the spoiler is, but he wrote this from experience, and it is an issue that's happening in Nigeria a lot. We could talk about the Chibok girls that were taken in a few years ago, 200 of them, and it's something that's continuing to grow, not rapidly, but enough to where we should raise red flags. So I think it does raise a very current issue that I think we should be talking more about. So I'm happy to see the kind of discourse that comes from that, civil discourse that comes from that, and also just anything about Africa that shows specificity, that's not indulging in quote unquote torture porn or trauma porn. I don't have any desire to be part of. I think our best years are ahead of us. Any project that looks to the future, in Yoruba, Iwaju means forward, future. Anything that looks to the future of our people and looks to the future of our diversity and the incredible strength that comes from diversity, those are the stories that I'm interested in telling. And so guys, tune in, watch this. The more you watch this and show interest in this, the more the industry will make this. So I'm very proud of this, and I think it's going to do gangbusters back home and frankly everywhere in the world.
I agree. My last question to you is, how has this influenced you? You're a multi-talented artist. How has this influenced you as a creator going forward? Are you going to go out seeking more projects? Talk to me.
Oh yeah, it's funny. I'm actually in talks for a project right now. I was talking to the producers, like, can I do this as a Nigerian? Because in the script there was no direction. They wanted the actors to just create something completely original, and I was like, how can I do this in Nigeria? So now I'm thinking about it more, because when I moved here from Nigeria, and deciding to do this for a living, every role you just imagine had to be a Black American kind of a thing. So now I think just casting houses are interested in, like, oh yeah, let's explore what that looks like. That could be just something that I bring to the table just to populate, entertainment with stuff like that, and I do have a series coming up on Apple TV Plus. It's called Dark Matter, with Joel Edgerton, Jennifer Connelly, Jimmy Simpson, Alicia Braga, and myself. And the nature of that show is somewhat multiversal. So I do get the chance to play multiple versions of my character in that show. It's based on an amazing best-selling novel by Blake Crouch. It was on the New York Times bestseller list for months. I may or may not be sneaking a Nigerian version of my character there, so just things like that, just to let people know the flavor that Africa's come up with.
I love it. You got to drop the drop date for that show, and then February 28th.
That's correct.
You can watch Iwaju on Disney Plus. So hit us with it, man.
Yes, February 28th. Every single episode of Iwaju, all 6 episodes drop on February 28th. Tune in. It's one for the family. Gather around, everybody. Get the popcorn, get the dodo, get the puff out, the akara, whatever. A little bit of palm wine on the side, and enjoy. It's definitely going to be a thrill. And then Dark Matter drops May 8th exclusively on Apple TV Plus.
That's what's up, and we are out.
Boom.